With the Giants at 2-4 on the season, Brian Daboll needs to make a decision. And the decision is, do you want to lose the locker room or do you want to keep the locker room on your side? Because I believe if the New York Giants continue to roll out Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback for this football team, this team will quit and Brian Daboll will lose the locker room. If you want the Giants to bench Daniel Jones, hit that thumbs up icon. If you want Daniel Jones to stay the starter, comment why down below. Educate me, because I'm looking for a good reason. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. As we dive into a video today that I'm very passionate about and I feel very strongly about. Right now, the New York Giants are at a fork in the road. They need to make a decision. Who do they want to be? Most importantly, Brian Daboll, who do you want to be? Brian Daboll, I believe, has done a great job as the head coach for the New York Giants this year. The Giants team, the players, they fight for Brian Daboll. The 2 wins that they have this year have come from games where they've put themselves in a 7-0 hole early on in the game. And the team didn't quit. They came back and fought. That tells me that Brian Daboll has this locker room ready to fight for him. But I also believe that this defense is fed up. Dexter Lawrence didn't speak to the media following Sunday Night Football's game. He's fed up. Every time he speaks after a loss, he is fed up. Brian Burns sounded fed up in the locker room. And how could you not be? The Giants have given up 8 touchdowns this year, and they are 2-4. The Giants have not given up more than 21 points on the defensive side of the ball this year, and they are 2-4. If you and I know that Daniel Jones is the problem, so does the locker room. And so does Brian Daboll. For the first time this season, I felt like Brian Daboll was somewhat honest and somewhat revealed his cards and his true emotions on the situation. This quote right here literally made me say, what? Shout out to Big Blue View. Brian Daboll. Daniel Jones is doing everything he can to be as good as he can be. AKA, he's just not good enough. Daniel, you're supposed to color in between the lines, but you're doing your best, so good job. This is a quote from a coach that knows that his quarterback is holding this team back. And also, we are just getting started with the locker room reaction. I don't want to go as far as to say outrage, but reaction to the poor play of this offense. Pat Leonard said this on his YouTube channel early Monday morning following the Sunday Night Football loss. Dexter Lawrence skipped the media session after the game. He was gone before the reporters and the media were in the locker room. And I don't blame him one bit. Dexter Lawrence is having the best defensive season by a New York Giant since Michael Strahan. He has 7 sacks through 6 games as a nose tackle. He is second in the NFL in sacks this year. He is a half sack off the lead. Dexter Lawrence is the best non-quarterback in the National Football League. And the Giants have 2 wins to show for it. Dexter Lawrence is fed up. I can promise you that. And I don't blame him one freaking bit. The Giants insider with this, saying, as for Brian Burns, that dude is hurting. And he played his ass off. My man was seriously limping after the game, and he shared some thoughts on his groin that I will keep between us. But don't ever question Burns' heart and will to win. That dude leaves it on the field and takes losses hard. Glad the Giants have him. So Dexter Lawrence skips the media. Brian Burns is playing through injury, and he's fed up with the loss. The thing is, if I can tell and you can tell, the players can tell. Most importantly, the players know who the players are. The ballers know who the ballers are. And Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, 2 of the best players in the National Football League. They know that Daniel Jones is not an elite quarterback, and this defense deserves better. This defense is elite. Like, when you talk about the stats that matter, when you talk about the production that they have, don't slight them, because this isn't a defense that should be 2-4. This is a defense with average quarterback play that would be 4-2 and maybe 5-1. The Giants defense, when it comes to defensive touchdowns allowed, 6th in the NFL. They've given up 8 touchdowns this year in 6 games. They are giving up 1.3 touchdowns per game, and they are 2-4. Number 1 in sacks. They have the most sacks in the National Football League. They bring the most pressure. They have the number 1 sack rate. So not only are you first in sacks, not only are you first in sack rate, not only have you given up the 6th least amount of offensive touchdowns this year, you also have the 2nd most tackles for loss. You have a top 5 defense. You have a Super Bowl winning caliber defense. I truly do believe that. But you also might have one of the worst offenses in New York Giants history. The Giants offense has scored 8 touchdowns through 6 weeks. They are averaging 1.3 touchdowns per game. They've allowed 8 touchdowns. And you are 2-4. Look, at the end of the day, it just is what it is, man. You're being held back by your quarterback. You are. And I believe that Brian Daboll, if he does not move on from Daniel Jones, might just lose this locker room. Giants defense hasn't allowed more than 21 points in a game this year. And you've lost 4 times. Giants offense is a joke. They average 15.5 offensive points per game. That is 29th in the NFL, behind Skylar Thompson and Snoop Huntley, behind Deshaun Watson, and behind Jacoby Brissett. And the reason I say that Brian Daboll, if he does not bench Daniel Jones, is going to lose this locker room is because we saw this all last year. This is 2023 all over again. The Giants offense versus the Giants defense. Wink Martindale versus Brian Daboll. Xavier McKinney saying we're playing good enough to win games, and you're not winning games. At some point, you have to try something new. Is Daniel Jones better than Drew Lock? Probably. But why not try something else? Because you're not winning games with Daniel Jones. You're not scoring points with Daniel Jones. You're not scoring touchdowns. And it doesn't matter how many times you bang your head into a brick wall, the brick wall is going to win. And the brick wall continues to win. And that's the opponents that get to play against Daniel Jones. He was terrible against the Cincinnati Bengals. Scored 7 points. Some advanced analytics here. His average depth of target, meaning how far down the field on average did you throw the football? 6.5 yards. What about average depth of completion? On your completions, how far did you throw the ball down the field? 2.2 yards. What about when you threw the ball more than 10 yards in the air? You completed 25% of those passes. You had 0 big-time throws, and you had 1 turnover-worthy play, and you had 3 throws batted down at the line of scrimmage. Average depth of completion, 2.2 yards. Shout out to Doug Analytics on Twitter. Give him a follow. One of the best in the game. An average depth of completion by 2.2 yards is tied for Daniel Jones's career low, matching his 104 yards on 28 attempts versus the Dallas Cowboys in 2023 in Week 1 when the Giants lost 40-0. The Giants had 0 plays of 15-plus yards against the Cincinnati Bengals. 0 plays of 15-plus yards. You will never, ever, ever win a football game when you score or have 0 plays of more than 15 plus yards. Listen to this stat here. Since 2000, only 7 teams have won a game where the offense's longest play gained 15 yards or less. That's just a 0.1% of all games. You will never win games if you can't create explosive plays. And Daniel Jones, he is allergic to explosive plays. And Brian Daboll knows that. Brian Daboll says the Giants' inability to generate explosive plays is a big reason why they aren't where they want to be. We'll keep calling them, and we have to keep improving in that area. Only 7 teams have won a game where their offense's longest play gained 15 yards or less. That's 0.1% of the time. You're asking your defense to pitch shutouts. But I believe that at this point, it's not just the defense that knows that Daniel Jones is not a good enough quarterback to put this team in spots to consistently win games. It is bleeding into the offense. Jermaine Illuminor said this. We felt like we should have won, but we just didn't execute enough to win. You know why he felt that way? Because the defense played good enough to win. The offensive line played good enough to win. Tyrone Tracy played good enough to win. The receivers played good enough to win. You know who didn't play good enough to win? The guy that is the second most expensive player in the National Football League this year. What about Wan'Dale Robinson? We know that we've got to put up points for us to win. 7 points isn't going to do it. I really do believe that the New York Giants and Brian Daboll could lose the locker room if they do not move on. You know why? Because Jermaine Illuminor, Wan'Dale Robinson, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence, and I all know the Giants are a good quarterback away from the P word. We're talking P word. The P word. The only P word we care about. They are a good, not even good, they are an average quarterback away from 4-2, which would be tied for first in the NFC East. And you're a QB away. You're a QB away. And that's why I'm optimistic. After last night, what are your thoughts on the future? Be honest with me. Are you optimistic about the future or are you pessimistic about the future? Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to share mine, and we're going to talk more about Daniel Jones and that god-awful performance. But first, I got to give a major shout-out to today's sponsor, Game Time. Download the Game Time app, use the promo code ChatSports, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase where terms do apply. You get the best seats for the lowest prices guaranteed. Prices actually drop as the events get closer. And you're going to get $20 off your first purchase where terms do apply when you use the promo code ChatSports. You get last-minute deals and flash deals. Views from the seat, in-app, and the lowest price guaranteed. NFL, NBA, college football, concerts, theater events, comedy shows, and so much more. Use these 2 features, all-in pricing and Game Time picks. It's going to make sure you get the best user experience. Price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees, and it makes it that much more easy to go see your favorite team play. Shout out to Game Time. Download the app. Use the promo code ChatSports. Download the app. Create an account. Promo code ChatSports, ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase where terms do apply. I'm optimistic after last night because the only thing I learned last night is that the Giants are close to being a good team. And it's not because of Daniel Jones. Defense is special. You dominated the Cincinnati Bengals. Offensive line played all right. Tyrone Tracy's going to be a player. We know what Malik Neighbors is. I think Wan'Dale Robinson could be a good third wide receiver. I believe the Giants are good outside of quarterback. They are just missing the most important position in sports. They are missing the position in sports that is hardest to go find. And that's what hurts, right? Because we all know, we've all watching this game, you're as good as your quarterback. And right now, the Giants are as good as their quarterback. Whereas they have so much talent. And the way they've built this roster honestly deserves a lot of credit. But now we got to talk about Daniel Jones. 7 points against Cincinnati is an effing joke. Cincinnati was giving up 29 points per game coming into the game. That was the 31st ranked scoring defense. Daniel Jones scored 7 points. He has to be better. Like, it is year 6. We are almost 3,000 days into the Daniel Jones experience, and we are saying this after he got a contract for $140 million. He has to be better. Daniel Jones has 8 passing touchdowns in his last 13 games. Guys, that is 4 games short of an NFL season. 8 passing touchdowns in his last 3 games. Tommy DeVito threw 8 touchdowns in his last 6 starts. Tommy DeVito has thrown the same number of touchdowns in his career games of 6 starts that Daniel Jones has in his last 13 games. That's more than double the amount of games that Tommy DeVito has started. I also think the best way to judge a player and to feel and get a look as if they're a great player is, how do you play when the stakes are the highest? How do you play in the biggest moments? How do you play against the best competition? And I think that can all be summed up into primetime football. Daniel Jones is 1-4. I almost said 1-4. 1-14 on primetime football. But it's worse than that. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown. Daniel Jones has not thrown a pass that was either caught in the end zone or caught short of the end zone or short of the sticks. We know he likes to do that. And then run into the end zone in his last 7 games under the bright lights. Daniel Jones's last primetime touchdown came 1,057 days ago. We have gone to bed 1,057 times in between the last touchdown that Daniel Jones has thrown on primetime football. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown at MetLife Stadium in 651 days. So you can't win on primetime. You can't throw touchdowns on primetime. You can't even throw a touchdown at your freaking home stadium. The end of the Daniel Jones era is here. The end of the Daniel Jones era is staring Brian Daboll in the face. Brian Daboll, I believe, is a great football mind. I believe Brian Daboll is a good head coach. I believe Brian Daboll has a good feel for his locker room. And I know, and I believe that Brian Daboll knows he is on the verge of losing his locker room if he does not do something to try to help the Giants win football games. Because trotting out 8 every week is not giving you the best shot to win. Try something else. Give your defense some hope. Insert some life into this football team. Because I am tired of watching that freaking mouth breather lose on primetime football again and 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 again. 14 times. That nobody will ever have a worse primetime record in the history of the National Football League than Daniel Jones. 1 win to 14 losses. If you're ready for something new, hit that thumbs up icon and make sure you are following me on social media. I'm on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_, Instagram at @MarshallGreen_. Hit me up over there and let's go Big Blue.